1. Here is some backstory. This summer I took up my first job as a lifeguard for a cowboy and Texas-themed water park. My last day of the season was about 2 weeks ago, as I have school in a different town, but I think I'll be back next summer. This is my only entitled parent story from this season, which I guess is baffling considering I worked practically every day this summer. Anyway, my park is separated into lifeguard districts, every district having numerous lifeguards, about 5 leads, 2 supervisors, and our 1 district manager. Every pay period, the leadership has to have 1 shift on stand, because they are all lifeguards before anything else. You'll see why this is important later. My district has a very shallow activity pool, with 2 floats that children love to play King of the Hill on. Now for the story. It was a Saturday night around 9:55 p.m. I remember being so tired from my long-ass shift and being excited because in 2 days I would be able to figuratively hand in my whistle and say goodbye to this godforsaken water park. I was scanning my zone, checking all corners and edges on my side of the pool. I have to cover it all within 10 seconds, so in the event of a drowning, I hypothetically have enough time to notice a guest in distress and get to them. When I can hear this woman screaming at her daughter and 2 other women. From what I overheard, this Karen's little child was pushed off of one of the floats. Fairly common, most kids just push right back, but didn't say anything to her mom until later. Mom was yelling obscenities at her child when she screams, "You have 2 lifeguards right there who saw it. You didn't tell them anything?" She points at me, and the lifeguard on the other side of the pool, who I'll call Joe. I'm praying that this hysterical woman doesn't come near me because I definitely didn't see a thing. Had I would have whistled at the boys to stop numerous times. Sadly, she waved over to me. She yells, "Hey!" I decide to finish my scan before addressing her so I can make eye contact. But that's not enough for her. "Are you even paying attention?" She splashes at me. I address her with a "Howdy, ma'am, how can I help?" Karen yells back, "Did you see my daughter get pushed by those 2 boys? Those 2 right there." She points. "I know it was them." I tell her, "Ma'am, I didn't see anything. I was probably doing my bottom scan when it took place." She tries to argue back about how I must have seen it while I try to explain the fact that I have to physically look and scan around my pool consecutively. She was absolutely furious that I wasn't watching her child for her when she drops the best line I've ever heard. "What are you scanning for? Dead bodies?" If you know what a lifeguard is, you know exactly that's my job. Hopefully they aren't dead yet when we see them, but yeah, dead bodies. I'm completely dumbfounded by this woman, so I kind of just shrug like I'm Jim Halpert in The Office, and try to mutter something about my lifeguard training company. She figures this isn't going anywhere, and I must be incompetent, so she asks for my name. I show her my name tag and she reads it out, then demands for my last name. Let me clarify that the name on my badge is very uncommon, meaning that she could just say OP and everyone would know she was talking about me. She does not need my last name. "Ma'am, how about I call my supervisor to settle this?" I suggest. My job isn't to deal with upset guests, it's to scan for, as Karen put it, dead bodies. "No, I want your last name." I decide fuck it. I blow my whistle 3 times and raise my hand and make a fist. Joe points at me, and one of my leads comes to my aid. Karen eases away back to her friends and daughter and starts complaining about me. I let my lead know of the situation, and he ends up getting our supervisor and other lead over to help. I finally rotated to my last spot of the day, and everything that happened was told to me by my leadership's team. I thought the little girl was pushed off the float in the shape of a wagon wheel, which is in my zone. Turns out she was pushed off the lily pad, which is not in my zone but Joe's. Joe is a new lead who was doing his 1 guard shift of the pay period, meaning not only did she yell at the wrong person, he was actually qualified to be yelled at. Joe did see who pushed the little girl and actually made the boys stop. Karen told my supervisor that I refused to give my first name when in fact I only refused to give my last name. I wish I could say that Karen had security called on her for being loud and disruptive, making the other guests uncomfortable, but the park was only open for 30 more minutes, so she just took her kid and stormed off. still believing she was in the right because lifeguards are here to watch her children rather than scan for dead bodies. In the end, I wasn't in trouble and I was able to make my co-workers laugh with the dead bodies line. I guess I could say that I'm lucky that was my first EM encounter, and I only had 2 more days left of work. 2. So this just recently happened outside of my office. I work in a town just a few miles from a major city. The area used to be pretty run down until the last couple of years, when some big developers bought a lot of the properties in the area and have been doing major construction work. One such work is repairing and expanding a storm drain next to my office building. Whenever it rains, we would get flooding in the area. In order to build a new building across the street from my office, they were required to increase the size of the storm drain. This new building is to be in the middle of 3 roads, so imagine a triangle. 2 roads are major roads, while the 3rd road, the one I'm on, is just a normal smaller road. Because the 2 major roads connect with each other, there is a traffic light, so people tend to use this road in order to avoid the traffic light. The road I am on is also an almost direct route to the elementary school. Due to the road work, the road in front of my office has been shut down with the exception of local traffic. You can't use the road to avoid the traffic light anymore. During this day, a well-known professional baseball player is visiting the local elementary school. It is still summer and school is out, but it is open to the parents and kids of the school to visit the speaker. During this time, about an hour before the speech, we notice that the traffic is extremely backed up on the main roads. The construction area has big signs that say road closed on the road itself, along with a fence blocking it. There have been signs up for about a month saying the road will close for construction work. The road itself has been closed for a little over a week at this point. I am near the copying machine, which has a window that directly faces a road and now a construction site. When I see some trucks leaving the area, the street workers move the closed road signs and open the fence so the trucks can get out. When the trucks start to leave, I see a car come flying down our road. Now this car has to be going over the speed limit due to how fast it was going. It almost hit CW1 when he is trying to put back the sign. The car zips past the gate that was also open due to the truck leaving, and falls into the large hole in the road. The hole is huge at this point, while the width was only about 3 feet, I guess. It cut across the road and was pretty deep. I hear a loud crash and run outside to see what happened. I see my co-worker was already there as he was on a smoke break. The rest of my office comes outside. The car is a wreck. The airbags have gone off and it appears the front has been reduced by half. The woman gets out of the car with blood on her forehead. CW1 and CW3 run over to help her, while CW calls 911, thinking she might be seriously injured. The other construction workers start to take pictures and in front of the road closed signs for the emergency people to come in. The woman is maybe in her late 20s, wearing extremely high heels, fingernails that are longer than her hands, bleached hair, and a top so tight that you can see her nipple rings. She starts to yell at the construction worker.
Who put this dang hole here?
Ma'am, are you okay? We've called 911 and the police and ambulance are on their way.
I want you all to get my car out so I can show my baby the baseball player. He's looking forward to it.
As she said baby, CW3 looked in the car and saw a child, maybe 6 years old, hidden a bit from the wreck and airbags. He had no booster seat and was not moving. He appeared to be unconscious. CW3 runs over to get a tool to remove the door. Ma'am, your child appears to be... The woman then runs over to the door and starts to hit the man with her hands.
Leave him alone, he's just sleeping, he wants to see him.
Just when she yells, the police, fire department, and ambulance appear. The police officer runs over with the EMTs and fire department. The firemen start to remove the door while the police officer goes to the woman. Ma'am, are you okay? Do you want to go to the hospital? The EMTs are working on your son.
We don't want no hospital visit. You're giving me a ride to the school. My baby is so excited to see the baseball player that he hardly slept last night.
The EMT yells out that they need to get to the hospital now. The son is in serious condition. The EMTs take the son out of the car and into the ambulance. The EM starts to yell.
You all did this to him, you all racist. They don't let my son see that famous baseball player. I want you to take us now.
This didn't make sense as everyone but me and CW2 were the same race. Ma'am, if you don't stop, I'm going to have to detain you.
You put us all down. You cops are all the same. You are going to take us now.
After that rant, the police officer arrested her. He got the EMTs to look over her and she was cleared, just a cut on her head. He took her to the police station while contacting the grandmother. The police officer also took statements from everyone about what happened. Later on in the day, as this happened before lunchtime, CW1 told us that the grandmother went to the hospital, and he heard the boy was upgraded to stable condition, but will be in hospital for a while. Update. So, we spoke with CW1, and it turns out that the grandmother went to the construction site with donuts and coffee for the men this morning, for helping her grandson out. The child will be okay. He has a few broken bones and a concussion. He is still in the hospital, mainly to keep an eye out for him, but he should be released in a few days. Her daughter was released on bond, but the CPS was called, as EM not only was driving into a construction site, but also on a suspended license, speeding, and was also charged with a DUI. So people who thought she was most likely on drugs, yes, she was. I don't know what drugs, as the grandmother didn't want to get into much detail about it. The grandmother also said that she has been trying to get EM clean, but this was the last straw, and will try to get full custody of her grandson. 3. This story doesn't involve me directly, but I witnessed my first Karen incident at the gym today. A bit of explanation about the layout of the gym swimming pool and locker rooms. There are 4 locker rooms for people who want to go swimming, male, female, disabled, and family, where parents and children can go get ready instead of going into either male or female locker rooms. As the age limit for children of the opposite sex to their parent, a male child going with a female parent or vice versa is 8 years old. This is important later. In the locker room, there was a girl who looked to be about 16 years old. She wasn't indecent. She had on her bra and underwear, as well as a towel around her waist. And she was in her locker trying to get her clothes. I was almost ready to leave and was maybe 4 or 5 lockers down from her. Usually I don't pay any attention to what happens in the locker room, but today I couldn't help but notice one woman, this is our EM, looking horrified. Now this woman was in her late 20s or early 30s, and was getting her son, a boy of maybe 2 or 3 years old, ready to go swimming. She didn't look like a typical Karen type, and didn't really give off any indication that she was going to go off on one. But then she did. This woman, with her horrified expression, walked over to the girl and tapped her on the shoulder. The girl jumped, clearly surprised that someone was talking to her. She turned, and before she even turned to speak, EM starts talking.
You shouldn't be dressed like that in public.
Now let me just remind everyone so we're on the same page. This is the female locker room for a gym swimming pool. It is not uncommon for women to walk around in just towels or their underwear, or even stand around naked. Rare, but it happens. There is nothing out of the ordinary about a teenage girl in her underwear and a towel. Said girl is startled.
What? You're not dressed correctly. You should cover up.
The girl didn't say anything and turned around to try and get dressed. EM did not like this.
Excuse me. Look at me when I'm talking to you.
The girl turned around and gave her an "Are you serious?" look. But EM didn't think anything of it and kept going.
You shouldn't be naked in public, especially not in front of my son. I don't want my son exposed to the female body while he is so young.
At this point, I'm looking around and making eye contact with the other people in the locker room, confirming that this is actually happening. And I wasn't just imagining it. I exchanged looks with 3 or 4 other women, almost all of them accompanied by their own children. Nobody seemed to agree with EM's opinion. The girl was visibly annoyed. What the hell are you talking about? I'm trying to get dressed, so leave me alone and stop being a creep.
I'm the creep. You're the one showing off your body to my son. You were trying to distract my son.
The fuck, he's a toddler. I just want to get dressed in peace, lady. EM wasn't finished.
I'm going to speak to a member of staff and get you banned. In fact, you should be fricking arrested. Public nudity is a crime, you know.
At this point, one of the other mothers speaks up.
She's allowed to be in her underwear in the swimming changing room. Why are you having a fit about that? It's stupid.
EM did not expect this reaction.
Because my son should not be exposed to the female body like that at such a young age.
Other mother was in attack mode. Did you breastfeed your son?
Of course, it's healthier for the baby.
Why is it a crime for your son to see a teenage girl in a bra when he fed from your breasts?
Because that's different. I was feeding the baby, but this girl has sexual motivations.
By this point, I had been ready to leave for about 5 minutes, but I was just sticking around for the drama. However, I was getting tired of EM and her backwards logic, so I pitched in as well. Miss, if you were so against your son seeing women dress so indecently, why did you choose to come into the female locker room instead of the family changing room? And then a third contributor chimed in.
Why are you taking your child to a swimming place where he can see women in swimsuits which show off their bodies if you don't want him to see women's bodies?
This threw EM off her game for a moment before she tried to claw her way back.
Well, most women wear a one-piece swimming costume, and it would be unfair on me to be segregated from other women by going into the family room.
At this point I rolled my eyes, said, "Whatever, lady," and walked out of the locker room. I have no idea how much longer EM went on her rant, or if anything else even happened. It was my first real-life experience with an EM out in full force, so it was a bit of a wild ride from start to finish. But I hope I don't run into another one again. I hope that the teenager was able to leave the locker room without much hassle. 4. Cast EM. You know how it is. GK, EM's kid. Didn't say anything, so I'm assuming GK. Cashier. Bystander to my encounter at Petco. Mom, my mom. Maggie, best friend I ever had. And a dog, just for reference. Backstory. This happened about 5 years ago when I was 15. It's necessary to know this was before I had a cell phone or a credit card or a bank account or anything adult-like at all. I did, however, have my driver's permit, not a license, but close enough. At the time, my dog Maggie was dying of liver cancer and was laid to rest several months after this event occurred. But in the meantime, a dog has still got to eat. Right? Both of my parents were out of town and my brother was in school at his university, so I was thoroughly alone and responsible for the dog and the house. My mom had left me with her credit card, trusting me to not be an idiot with it, and instead only use it in dire situations. Scene. A few days into my solitude, I noticed that Maggie was running out of dog food, the dry kibble-like stuff. I called my mom and she said that I could take the extra car, an old beat-up Toyota from who knows when, to Petco to get some more. And, of course, use her credit card. So I scratched Maggie on the head, told her to be good, and headed to Petco. Upon arrival, I walked to the dog food aisle with no problems. It was then I saw the only amount of dog food they had, that was the same brand we always got, was the 40-pound bag. I picked it up, hoisted it into my basket with an embarrassing amount of effort, and went to the checkout. I arrived in line just before the woman and her kid got there. The woman huffed something about being in a rush, but I didn't think much of it. I only had one item. This woman, as I would soon discover, would be our lovely EM. Now, those of you who have shopped for dog food know that sometimes it can be expensive, and this brand happened to be just that. When the cashier scanned it and requested I pay, I inserted the credit card. It beeped and then asked me to sign. The bag was just over the price where I wouldn't have had to sign for it. That's when I panicked. I had never used a credit card before, I know it is silly, but I wasn't sure if I was allowed to sign for it or not. I thought that might be illegal. And this is where the drama begins. "This is my mom's credit card, and am I allowed to sign for it?" I asked the cashier. "I don't know, that's something you'll have to talk to the bank about." "Sorry, I've just never done this before." And this is when the EM decides that it has become her business. "You know, you probably shouldn't be shopping with a stolen credit card." "It's my mom, so it's all right." "Then your mother isn't being responsible. She should keep things like that away from kids. Does she even know that you're here?" "Yes." "My children would never steal my credit card. Neither would they lie to an adult." She gestures to her kid, who looks miserable, as if he knows what's about to happen. This is the point where I get confused. Lying? I was accused of lying. I wasn't even sure what she thought I was lying about. "I'm not lying," she flips. "Don't talk back to me, you little brat. You talk back to me when you're shopping with a stolen credit card." "Oh yes, because the first thing I do with a stolen credit card is buy a 40-pound bag of dog food." She seems to be less confident in her claim now, but EMs never back down without a fight. "Did your parents not teach you any respect? Here you are yelling and screaming at me, when all I have done is voice my opinion." Voice your opinion. You're saying I stole a credit card. She was clearly not used to talking with teens who have a mind of their own. You little shit, don't talk back to me. Give me that card so I can return it to its rightful owner. No, I need to buy this dog food. The cashier finally steps in. Just sign for the bag, kid. EM, now feeling teamed up on, don't let him buy that, it's a stolen card, he's a criminal. I still find it funny that she didn't ever call the police despite calling me a criminal. Makes me think that she was arguing only for the sake of not being wrong. I pay, sign for the bag, get my receipt, and head back to her car. The EM is still blabbering on about theft and the law. She starts insulting me, calling me the typical EM things, brat, disrespectful, immature little boy. Then she starts insulting my parents, calling them swine, barbaric, irresponsible, not knowing how to raise a kid. Out of pure curiosity, I wait in my car to see what she does after checking out. She just walks to her car with her kids, sees me, raises both hands, and promptly flips me off. Yes, very mature indeed. Clearly she was embarrassed but didn't want to admit being wrong. 5. This happened a week ago, and I've just gotten over the shock and finished giving my company statements. I work part-time in a chocolate shop, and we give out samples to customers. On this particular day, the sample contained a hazelnut praline. Here in the UK, there has been a massive rise in allergen awareness, so we're all very well trained in advising customers. I am working on my own in the store on a very quiet day. Cast, EM, entitled mother. AS, annoying son, about 4 years old. Me, dabbles in irony. EM and AS walk into my store. Hi, can I offer you a chocolate? It's a praline, so it contains hazelnuts and milk. EM takes the chocolate.
I'll have one, but my son's allergic to nuts. Is there anything he can try?
Now, even though it's not company policy, my store keeps an open box of plain dark chocolate to give to people with allergies because we like to be nice. I do have to warn you that everything may contain traces of nuts, but I do have some chocolate he could try with no nuts in the recipe if you agree. She agrees and I get the chocolate out. So far so good. She actually comes across as quite nice. He greedily grabs 2 chocolates and she picks up one as well. I internally roll my eyes but keep a smile on my face. He immediately spits it out and she starts to complain.
What is this? This is boring and flavourless and disgusting.
It's just our dark chocolate. It's the safest for people with allergies to eat.
Well, I got a fancy chocolate, and my son who loves chocolate got something with no flavour. It's like you're punishing him for having allergies. Give him something nicer to try, or I won't buy anything from this company ever again. I spend a lot of money in this company, and you don't want to upset me.
He's screaming and jumping around over at our wall of chocolates, and because he is young and can't read, he picks up a bar that contains nuts.
Want this, want this, want this! Let him try this.
Miss, I'm not allowed to open packets to let people try chocolate, and also... She cuts me off as I go to explain about the nuts.
If you don't open it, then I will.
She rips the packet out of the boy's hands. He has been screaming the whole time, and this just makes it worse. I panic. Miss, it has nuts in it.
How dare you shout at me? You're just saying that so I don't open it.
She opens the packet. You can literally smell the praline as she does. But she breaks off a large chunk of chocolate and shoves it into the boy's mouth as he screams and cries. The moment he tastes it, he stops screaming and starts happily chomping the chocolate, and she instantly appears to calm down. Her voice changes back to how she was when she came in, if a little more patronizing.
See, that wasn't so hard. I'll buy this because he likes it, even though you lied about it having nuts.
I've never seen an anaphylactic shock before, and I thought it always happened instantly. So when he didn't swell up right away, I assumed she'd been lying to get a different chocolate. EM clips AS into his buggy, and then comes to the till to pay, and takes a moment rummaging in her bag to find her purse. I realize the store has gone very quiet, and immediately look at the buggy, thinking he must have fallen asleep. The boy's face is very red and beginning to swell a little. He looks up super disoriented, and can't make proper sounds as his throat swells. I realize this is the beginning of an allergic reaction. EM turns and screams. Thankfully I work in a shopping mall, so I hit our button that alerts emergency services to the store. In my panic I just start yelling, "Do you have an EpiPen?" EM is clearly in shock and just starts making this high-pitched whimpering noise and nods while pointing under the buggy. I stick my head out of the store door and yell for the responders. I'm pretty much in tears at this point. Thankfully, the mall responders arrive and take over. They are first aid trained and get the EpiPen. They also call 999. They administer the medicine and have AS laying flat until an ambulance can arrive. EM is clutching my arm the whole time. I nearly feel sorry for this woman until I remember this is her fault. The ambulance arrives and takes AS and EM away. I called my manager and she let me close the store until my coworker arrives, and I start giving statements to everyone, my company, the mall, the police, who also turned up with the ambulance. I got the rest of the day and the next day off. Thankfully, AS recovered, so there is a happy ending. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Impractical Proudness of Parents, number 13. Or IPOP, as I like to call it. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. It's been a very annoying day today. The guy who came to do the annual, I guess it's annual, seems like more, but the annual inspection of the heating, for whatever difference it makes, arrived way later than they usually did. So I got no sleep until after 3 o'clock, when they finally showed up and did their job and then left. They're usually here a lot earlier, so obviously I was so tired I could barely function at that point, so I had to just close the blinds and the curtains in the house, and went to bed, and I woke up about 10 o'clock, I think it was. It was before my alarm went off, so that was good. Maybe a little before 10 then, yeah. And thankfully I had the bulk of my recording and editing done. I was a good boy and got most of it done. But it means I'm working very, very late when I was actually hoping to get done much earlier. Such is life. You roll with the punches and make what you can of it, I suppose. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.